President, as I need to recuse myself from that matter, and I'll let her guide the public hearing as well as this matter when it comes up later on our agenda, along with the Chair of Legal Affairs. So, Councilor Feckley, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we have a public hearing at 6 o'clock on 1721 Stephen Fratelli, request to amend flammable liquids license, and that is referred to the Chair of Legal Affairs.
Okay, thank you, Madam Vice President. This is petition 17-21, Stephen Fratelli of Fratelli Oil Company, Inc., a request to amend flammable liquids license from 335,000 gallons to 575,000 gallons of flammable liquids at 239 Litchfield Street. This is a continuation of several public hearings that we've held. And just to summarize, I think when we left off, the two biggest issues facing the council that seemed to be brought up was one, the need or the desire perhaps to have an independent review the design and installation of this facility. And also there seemed to be concern about the petitioner requesting more volume than perhaps he may need at this time because he didn't want to have to come back to the council. At this juncture, I would first turn this over to Councilor Cormier, who is also on the Legal Affairs Subcommittee and is the ward councilor for that particular ward. Councilor Cormier.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I'm just, I guess I would ask the petitioner if there's been any consideration to amending the amount of liquids, that's he's asked to be stored there to, reflect what will actually be stored there under, what we know about now and not have room for, if there's any future growth that you come back to the council.
Okay. Well, I can amend the above ground storage, cut that back a little bit.
Okay. What if you were going, and what would you amend it down to?
Above ground storage, I'd amend it to 1,000 gallons.
How much?
60,000 above ground storage.
1,000. Okay.
And Mr.
Chairman, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I don't mean to interrupt. Mr. Fratelli, what would you be amending that from? From what amount to 60,000?
So the original request was for 120,000 above ground. So it'll be cut back from 120,000 to 60,000 above ground. But I still am requesting the 120,000 gallon underground.
Okay, and I believe at the last meeting, we were pretty much assured that below ground was not really significant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Cormier, any other questions or anything else on that point?
Well, I think I feel somewhat confident in the underground storage department, if you will. I understand that chances of having something happen with something that's buried is probably, slim. But the other issues that I have, and it's already happening there now, and I know the fire chief is aware of it. I've driven by and see it there is day, and the neighbors have brought it up to me, is, you know, you can see a truck with all these tanks on it very close to the road. And, you know, we've discussed before this 2.5 acre land over there. And I really wish that some of this above ground storage on these trucks could be stored away from the road. You know, something that I envision happening, you know, we talk about a heat source and whatnot, is, you know, what if a car ever, you know, went off there and burst into flames? Now you have a vehicle on fire laying up a truck that's parked there with gas in it. You know, that's what concerns me. So close, you know, you're as close to all the homes and the street as you possibly can be. It's parked there, you know, this product in it. Even if they're not full, even if they have a little bit, you know, there's still a lot of fumes in there, and we all know that it doesn't take much. You know, that's, I'm okay. I think I'm okay with the under storage, and not so much the above ground storage, but where on the property it's being stored. Like, it's, to me, it's the worst place on the entire piece of property you could store it, close to the road, and, you know, closer to the home. So that's still a concern of mine, but I think I'm okay with the underground piece of this.
Okay. Before I ask the petitioner to address that point, could I just ask Mr. Fraticelli if you could just, I neglected to do this, if you could just introduce yourself and the people you have with you tonight, or who are on the phone?
Yes, Stephen Fraticelli Oil. Also have the engineer, Bob Seppi from MPE. My attorney, Paul Foley. And I also have Troy Phillips from Hall Track Equipment. And I'm not sure, but I also invited Mike Pluta to be here as well. He's also part of the National Propane Board.
Okay, and I didn't know if is the fire chief on the line?
Yes, fire department's on.
Okay, good evening, Chief. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Counselor.
Okay, Mr. Fraticelli, I believe the point that Councilor Cormier brought up was just a concern. I guess the neighbors have raised it as well about a truck parked close to the road with what appears to be propane tanks that may still have remnants in them, and the concern about that. I don't know if you can just address that for us quickly.
Okay, so the tanks that they're seeing are empty, brand new propane tanks that were dropped on my location to distribute out to customers once I acquire them. There is no gas on them, and there won't be any gas on them until they reach a customer's house. So those tanks are all empty. There's a propane truck there that's out during the day, going house to house, filling up customers. So it's hardly there on the lot. And if worse comes to worse, I can park the truck in the back of the property.
Okay. Mr. Fraticelli, did you get a chance? The other issue we talked about was the at least the Legal Affairs Committee, I think, were in favor or had voiced a desire to have an independent review the design and installation of the facility, and you, I think you were going to do a little research and get back to us as to whether or not that was something that you would agree to as a condition.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood that because I thought someone from the council was going to engage in that and obtain prices. I abstained from seeing what that would cost because I didn't want it to become a potential conflict of interest.
Oh, I see.
Um,
Okay. All right. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, do you have questions at this time as one of the members of the Legal Affairs Committee?
I do. Thank you, Councilor Dombrowski. Mr. Fraticelli, did you have a chance by any, did you have an opportunity to update the draft plan to include the locations for the above-ground storage tanks, the big ones, the 30,000 gallon tanks?
There is no 30,000 gallon above ground storage tank going to be on the facility.
Okay, so what size tanks are you requesting in the 120,000 gallons of above ground storage? Where is that going to be located? I know that you've got, small resident, or relatively small residential tanks, and the new ones are located on the corner of Litchfield and the side street there. But what size tanks are you looking for the rest of the above ground storage capacity?
So those are customer tanks between 120 gallon up to 1,000 gallon tanks, and then whatever propane trucks I acquire. So there is no bulk above ground storage tank. It's just customer tanks that are going to be given out to customers and whatever trucks that I acquire.
Okay.
I believe, Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, I believe Mr. Fraticelli indicated earlier that he'd be willing to amend from 120,000 gallons above ground storage to 60,000 gallons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
Right, no, I understand that. The question still in my mind is, whatever form that storage takes place, whether it's in a truck, whether it's in residual amounts in customers' tanks, my question and my concern is the above ground storage, where exactly is it going to be located? So if that's in trucks, where are the trucks going to be parked, where are they going to be? And where would the customer tanks that are being returned, where would those be located as well?
Okay, so right now I have no plans on having any customer return tanks. The only time a tank would be returned is if I happen to lose the account. So that's going to be a very minimal, if ever, problem, or not problem, but situation. So all the tanks that are going to be on the property are going to be empty, vapor-free, not have any propane in them. The trucks themselves would potentially be the only thing that actually has propane in them. Like I stated at the last meeting, when I have to apply for this, the application says that I have to include anything that could hold propane, whether it's brand new customer tanks, trucks, bulk storage tanks. So that's why I'm requesting the above ground, not so much for a permanently fixed bulk tank on the facility, but I'm just following the guidelines of the application procedure.
Right.
This is Bob Seppi. We did show a plan showing all the locations of the above ground storage. It's on the plan.
Well, I have that plan in front of me, and I'm not quite
You
sure.
got right along the road, it says 30,000 gallons. It shows 10 trucks at 3,000 gallons each. It shows 10,000 gallons of return tanks.
What, you know what, that, I don't have that. I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry to say. The most recent draft plan that I have, it doesn't have a date on it, actually, I'm sorry to say.
Another plan that showed the site location of Fraticelli only, dated 11/5/20.
520, no, I don't have that. I don't have it. The only above ground storage that I have on mine is the new propane tank storage area, various capacities, 30,000 gallons total. And that's right on Litchfield Street. That's right on the corner there of the property. I have one other follow-up question. At our last meeting, I know we did talk about bulk storage tanks that have, I guess, about 1,000 gallon capacity. And I think the fire department confirmed for us that there were 6, I think, located in and around in Leominster at various locations for people to fill up their, barbecue grill tanks. And I asked if those would be part of your future plans, and you indicated that was definitely a possibility. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, specifically what kind of above ground storage are we looking at in addition to the trucks and the empty tanks, and where would those kinds of 1,000 gallon tanks be stored or be located, I guess, on the property?
That would be one 1,000 gallon storage tank, and I have not picked out a location for that yet. I have to get the underground tanks in first to see what property is available for me to safely place that tank.
So you have plans for 1,000 gallon storage tank.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other city councilor have any further questions or comments at this time?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Councilman Angelini.
Councilman Angelini, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Fraticelli, Mr. Seppi, Mr. Phillips, and Attorney Foley. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I just want to go back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. During the first hearing, I stated that I wanted to support this project. I want to be supportive of businesses in the community. And I was merely looking for some assurances. I think none of us on the council are experts in this area. And so obviously, after studying the plans that you provided us, at one question that I had, it still remains unanswered in my opinion, and that was about the above ground storage in a blast map. Now, we were provided a blast map, but again, it shows 200 gallons above ground storage on your site. And you amended the petition, or you're willing to amend the petition tonight from 120,000 gallons above ground to 60,000. So, I mean, we go from 6,000 gallons, even the amended, and I've got a 200 gallon blast zone map. So that raises questions for me. And I keep asking myself, why wouldn't these guys give me what I asked for? I mean, I scratch my head and I just wonder what's going on. So I think the chief made a marvelous suggestion at the last hearing, and I, for one, I don't know how the rest of the members of the council feel, but I'd certainly want to require a peer review of this. And I have to ask Mr. Seppi, if you guys were to be successful and get your license from the council approved, would you be? I would assume that the set of engineered plans required that you submit to the state fire marshal's office would be more detailed than the plans you provided the council. I mean, for instance, would there be a construction sequence schedule attached to those engineered plans?
Don't normally put a schedule of construction. It just kind of follows normal construction. You start a foundation and you work your way up. It could be done. It's not that out of the question.
Okay.
I've never had to do one.
All right, no, but my point is merely, I think what I'm trying to raise is that the requirements for you to obtain your ultimate approval require significantly more detailed plans than were provided to the council. And I'm not
Yep.
Implying
Absolutely.
anything sinister about that. I'm just trying to make a point.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
there'll be several pages of plans showing everything from piping to the tanks, the footings, the cathodic protection, the electrical work, the safeties, all get my, fire protection PE stamp on them. And I oversee the project. We actually do the construction. I'm on site almost all the day, every time something's happening. And my license is on the line, my livelihood's on the line. This is gonna be done per code and done correctly. I've been doing this for a long time. We actually built the oil facility there. So I feel pretty confident you're gonna have a very safe facility constructed there, and Mr. Faricelli operates a very safe operation in whatever he does.
Okay, I'm sure that's an accurate statement, and I have absolutely no reason to believe otherwise. So I will agree with you there. Now, Mr. Seppi, in your position as an engineer, I'm sure that you're familiar with other folks in the industry, and it wouldn't be that difficult for you guys to figure out what a cursory third-party review or a peer review of the plans would cost, or certainly to locate an engineering firm that's capable of doing that. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and that will be my final question would be, or comment, I guess, would be that I hope that we would find it in our wisdom to seek a peer review of the plans to give us the assurances that we need. And I thank you, gentlemen, for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angelini. Is there any other counselor at this point that has any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none.
This is Troy Phillips. Can you hear me?
I can.
I just want to follow up to Councilman Angelini's comment. So I think a big, I don't want to say it's a misconception, but Mr. Fraticelli was stating that we had to put in for the full gallonage of the tanks that would be on the facility. It's kind of the way the code is written. Is just because the tanks are brand new and they're empty, they still want to know, what could they hold? They would never be holding all that gas above ground. So I just wanted to try to clarify that a little bit. It's just asking for complete aggregate of all the tanks that would be there. So it's not going to be, and then the blast map is not a hard thing to do, but there would be no large containers, except for a truck on the facility, and we could do something like that in the form of a 500-gallon tank and do a blast map for that for you, knowing that there's a hot zone, a cold zone. The fire chief would know what I was talking about, but there's a whole, and the NFPA has a whole particular design for that, but it's just based on, what the smallest piece of shrapnel was that landed far away. And I'm not trying to say that to scare anybody. It's not, because all the tanks that he would have there for smaller tanks would, for the most part, I'm not going to say, I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. If there's going to be 1,000-gallon tanks in there, it's got some gas in it, or even 100-gallon tanks. But for the majority of these tanks that are sitting there, none of them are going to have gas in them, like he said, until they're ready to actually go on the road. And as far as the third-party engineering, which we don't have a problem, like Mr. Fraticelli said, I think that's kind of a conflict of interest if we go out and get the guy and that's what somebody's going to say. When we have the state fire marshal's office, who will be more than happy to take our plans from us and you and review them, and he's a non-biased third-party engineering firm, we could go that route if that would make everybody happy. I just kind of put that out there for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. At this point, I'm gonna go to the audience. Is there any member of the audience who wishes to address the council either in favor of or against this petition?
Counselor, this is the fire chief. Counselor, this is the fire chief. Can I speak or after the audience?
Chief, why don't I go through the audience first, and then I'll go right to you, okay?
Okay, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second time, is there any member of the audience who wishes to address the council either in favor of or against this petition? third and final time, is there any member of the audience who wishes to address the council either in favor of or against this petition? Okay, hearing nobody, at this time, Chief, I'd ask you if you have any questions or further comments or insight that you'd like to add, that would be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I have a few comments. So obviously the storage of the underground, we've reached out to the fire marshal's office twice. Since our last meeting, we called them back. They basically want nothing to do with it. The code kind of covers the installation part, and as long as it's installed properly, engineered and everything, it's kind of put back on the local fire department. I guess the big issue is, does the city council, the mayor, the city want propane on that property? And I think it comes down to a zoning where that was all industrial zone land back when Borden's and DuPont's and all those chemical companies, and they pretty much had free reign down there to do what they wanted. Then as time went on, they kind of went away and it became more of a residential mixed area. So my recommendation for the engineer to represent the city council would be to design the blast plans to answer the questions of should propane be that close to the residential area. Even though it's zoned for it, things have changed over the years. So the recommendation would be to the city council is to get somebody that's knowledgeable in that field to help you make the decision on whether you want it on that piece of property. As far as the fire department, we handle the permitting process, which would be the installation of the filling facilities, the installation of the tanks and everything. I do have a hard time with Mr. Seppi's blast analysis, where he just took a 200-gallon cylinder. The delivery trucks, which are the 3,400 gallon range that you can fill to a capacity of about 2,800 gallons. I mean, that's what's going to be in and out of there on a daily basis. And if it's not full overnight, it's going to be full at some point. But those are also the same trucks that are running through our neighborhoods, delivering the product to the houses. And then it comes down to the delivery of the propane from the distribution, which is probably going to come in a 18-wheel trailer truck, and I think they're 10,000 gallon tanks. I mean, this goes on all over the country. Residential neighborhoods delivering propane. There's a lot of safety built into it. It comes under the, I believe, Department of Transportation. In Massachusetts, the fire department permits combustible fuel trucks, which is the home delivery oil. We don't inspect or permit the flammable liquids, which are the gasoline tankers, the propane tankers. That comes under the DOT. I do have to make a comment, though, that we may have erred. The fire department was, we were doing inspections of the oil tanks down there, and we may have permitted the current propane truck that's down there, and I don't think we were supposed to. I need to do a little more time to look into that, because I know we don't do the trucks, but my question is the overnight storage. And as far as the combustible overnight storage of oil trucks, they changed the code on us this year. It used to be they needed a permit to store it in the neighborhoods, and now the way they worded it, it's different. We're permitting the storage, not so much the truck. A little complicated. But again, I just wanted to be totally upfront. I wasn't aware of that propane truck down there. I'm not 100% sure they can have it. I'm not too concerned because it's in an industrial facility. It's behind the lock gate. I wish maybe they could move it away from the road until we can figure out the distances and all of that. But having said that, if the city council agrees to license that piece of property, then when we received the engineered plans, because we haven't seen anything except a few sketches with distances. But once we receive the engineered plans and we go through the permitting process, then we will put on the permitting process that we want an independent engineer to represent the fire department. So that can be done together with the city council if they put it on the licensing permit also. But I can't do it ahead of you. I can only do it once I get the permit. I'm happy to answer any questions or any comments. If I misspoke about the propane from Fraticelli, his engineer maybe has some insight into it. So anything anybody has to ask me.
I'd like to say I did revise the plan showing 2,900 or 2,800 gallons on the site. I sent that to Mr. Fraticelli on Friday. I assumed he got it to the council.
This is Councilor Shalfo Zephyr. I haven't received anything new, and that's why I asked earlier about a revised plan, because I keep going over the plan that I do have dated 11/5 in detail, but I can't find the trucks that are located on there, and did not receive an updated plan.
The plan showing the site was done before the last meeting 2 weeks ago. The one with the blast zone map was done last week, and I took the blast zone that we used for the nursery and used it at the Fraticelli site, so it would replicate a truck full of propane.
Yes, those plans were available at the last meeting.
Steve, I sent you the blast zone map last week, Thursday or Friday. Did you get that to the town?
Yes, Kara told me she emailed it over to the city clerk.
The last email I received with an attachment was from October 30th.
Yeah, I don't believe we received that latest plan. Let me, and I understand this is frustrating. I think I had indicated at the last meeting that we're trying to balance accommodating a businessman who's run a very good business and has been very good for the city, and we want to see him succeed. And we're trying to balance that with the unknowns of a new industry in the city that we're unfamiliar with. So we're stumbling a bit. I apologize. Let me just do some quick subcommittee work, and then I'll open it back up to any other questions that. Well, actually, before I do that, does any member of legal affairs have a question for the chief based on what he had to add? Councilor Cormier, are you good?
Yeah, I am for the moment. I certainly appreciate all of his comments, and I think we can just discuss them more, after in a little bit. So.
Okay, Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, did you have any questions for Chief Sidlaw?
At this point, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Just going to other members of the council. Do any other members of the council have any questions for Chief Sidlaw at this point?
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Angelini, brief follow-up.
Yes, Councilor Angelini, go ahead.
Yeah, Chief, thank you so much. It was a very informative presentation. I just want an observation before the question, though. It seems to me that the process, this entire process, at no fault of anyone participating in it, seems to be a bit flawed. I would think that a full set of engineering plans would be required prior to the license being issued, but the council is being asked to issue a license in lieu of a full set of plans. But I do take great comfort in knowing that the fire department, in their capacity, will seek a third party, a peer review of the plan. So I do find some solace in that. Having said that, it sounds, well, I don't want to stick my nose in the committee's business, so I'll end my remarks there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Angelini. Any other counselor have any questions or comments at this point? Hearing none, I'm just going to take this into subcommittee real quick. My inclination, I think Councilor Angelini's point is well made. On the other hand, I don't think it's fair to ask a businessman to spend tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even more, on engineered plans for a permit that he may not get. I think perhaps the more appropriate vehicle is to, if we're inclined to issue this, to issue it with certain conditions that would essentially safeguard the city and the neighborhood. So just in subcommittee, I did put together a list of conditions. I got it to every member of the council, I believe. I do want to refine those conditions a bit, but I would like to discuss those conditions now. But before I do that, I just had two questions for my committee. One, is the committee okay with going forward in discussing those conditions, or is there a real need to see this additional plan that apparently was prepared last week? So I'd start with Councilor Cormier. I'll give you my opinion on that. I don't believe that I need to see this new plan myself. I think, this is we've had several hearings on this. A lot of questions have been asked, and I do think that I would be confident with the conditions that we can impose on going forward with the recommendation tonight. But we are a committee, so Councilor Cormier, your position?
I don't know what kind of information the plan is going to offer, but I certainly would like to see it. If it's out there, I want to have a chance to review it.
Okay. Councilor Zephyr?
I understand that this has taken a long time, and I really appreciate Mr. Fraticelli and his professional, advisors and consultants that he's brought to these meetings. I know it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and I'm sure it's been a lot of expense as well. However, because of the way that the neighborhood is developed, the residential homes, so close to what was and still is an industrial site, I feel that I would like more information. My concern is still very specifically with the above ground storage. I still really don't have a clear picture of what it is going to be, how it is going to be located and laid out on the site. So I would definitely be interested in seeing what further plan has been developed, because I sure don't have it.
All right. Well, I think given those circumstances, we're going to have to unfortunately continue the public hearing once again.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One other thing, also, the fire chief had mentioned that there's some things that he wants to look into. Primarily, being so close to Litchfield Street, he's not sure about some things. When you look at where these tanks are, he mentioned about the loading and offloading, an 18-wheeler. That's where, obviously, you look at where the tanks are, they're going to be loading and unloading the 3,000 some odd gallon trucks to go out to do the delivery. I mean, is there more information that the fire chief wants to look into as well to provide us? I mean, he asked a lot of sort of questions that he doesn't have the answers to. And, you know, what other information does he think he should be getting us before we, you know, make a decision on this?
All right, well, again,
Counselor, this is the fire chief. Can I comment, or are you in subcommittee?
no, go ahead.
Yeah, the questions I guess not questions, but I was just stating facts that, you know, a lot has been talked about the above ground storage of the empty tanks. And, you know, as he's taking them from houses and returning them, there'll be that. But just so the council's aware, I mean, this is an operation where delivery trucks will be coming and going on the side streets, and delivery tankers will be coming in. So the decision is, you know, as the city council is, there's residential areas coming into that way, both ways, of where this will be happening, that, you know, the auto accidents can happen with these vehicles, and the such. So that, I guess the decision is more than just, it's licensing that facility, but it's taking into the whole section of Leominster on that south side. So the thing I wanted to look into is like I said, is I may have erred in that we permitted the propane truck that's down there. We don't permit propane trucks. What we do is make sure that where they're parked overnight is meeting code and safe, and we're researching in the background as we speak. But like I said, they changed this code on us where it talked about overnight parking, and it kind of gave us a more descriptive scenario and information to work for. And now the information is more broad. It talks about being parked near places of assembly and residential areas and congestion in roads and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously, it's complex. And again, that's why I say is either stipulating on the license and of that you want the fire chief to make, you know, that these things have to be done to meet the fire chief. Like, it has to be X number of feet away from the road, or it has to be X number of feet from stuff that's actually not in NFPA 58. You know, above and beyond, I guess is what I'm saying.
And that's something you know, to the fire chief, you know, that's something we'd like to get your recommendations on, as to where you feel comfortable, so that we can put those conditions in there, you know, and
Yeah, I understand.
they can't be met, then we have you know, because the property is not conducive to that, then, you know, then we have a problem, you know. So, I mean, that's important. That's one of the most important things for me right now, you know, is where those vehicles are gonna be parked, and it's safe, you know.
Yeah, I know, like, it's sometimes there's times on delivery into certain neighborhoods. You know, there's conditions put on manufacturing that they can only go certain hours during the day. You know, those are all considerations that could be made part of the license agreement.
Right.
This is Bob Sepik. Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
On the plan that I did submit showing the whole property that has the tanks, the trucks, and so on there, I have the required distances for NFPA and the actual distances shown on that plan. And for example, the location of the filling station is required to have like 5 feet. We got 44 feet. Required distance from the residential property to the nearest tank is 50 feet. We have 90 feet. All these dimensions and requirements are shown on the plan that I thought the council had 2 weeks ago.
That's the, Mr. Seppi, that's the November 5th, 2020 plan, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, I have a copy of that. I assume everyone else has a copy. We went over that plan at the last hearing.
Right. And it has all the NFPA required distances for tanks, and the so on and so forth. They're all there listed. The actual sections of NFPA 58 code, what's required and what actually is there.
No, I see that.
And they're all beyond the required NFPA 58 distances.
Guys, so your representation is that all your setbacks exceed what's required by the code.
Mr. Seppi, this is the fire chief. I think I think what the city council is looking for more too is on, that has the minimum requirements of NFPA 58 for the installation. But there's the operation of the facility in the neighborhood. So I think a lot of the eddies is that we don't know how many delivery trucks are going to be coming in a day. We don't know how much product you're going to be selling, which means how many delivery trucks are in and out. There's windy roadways and intersections and everything. So I know your plan has what it needs for NFPA 58, but I think what the city, myself, the city council is looking for is maybe a much more descriptive plan of the operations. What you expect to sell during a year. It's a first for us, so we're very, very cautious, and we just want to make sure the whole neighborhood is safe in that side of the city.
I think that you already have all those trucks running through the neighborhoods via Mr. Fraticelli's competition for filling up down the road just over the line, and those trucks are delivering throughout the neighborhood currently. Mr. Fraticelli hopes to get those customers from his competition and be his trucks instead of a competitor's truck running down the same roads. Obviously,
well, no, that's delivering to the city. I'm talking about that specific neighborhood and property. Is the amount of trucks that will be coming in and out of that property into that neighborhood is I think that's the issue that we don't know the answers to. And other than a big making you pay and have an engineer represent us, we're trying to ask these questions, and I'm just suggesting maybe some more detailed plans on amount of truck traffic, amount of product, amount of how many times you're going to be filling a 2,800 gallon tank per day off of the 230,000s. I think some of that information may help the city be able to make its decision a little better. It's just a suggestion. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's obviously like a business plan Mr. Fraticelli is going to have to provide.
All right. I think at this point, we probably should get a little more direct in what we're expecting from Mr. Fraticelli. I would ask all counselors, whatever questions you may have, if you could please get them to the city clerk so she can get them to the applicant so we can get straight answers to straight questions. And if we could do that within the week, I think that would be very helpful. Mr. Fraticelli, I think the concern that the fire chief is making, and some of the counselors have, is the impact on the city streets relative to your delivery trucks. it seems to me that may be a tough question to answer right now until you actually start going in business. But perhaps you could use your oil business as a way to describe that for the council.
Okay, so you want me to answer that now, or just prepare an answer for the next meeting?
I think it might be better. I think it might be better if you prepare an answer for the next meeting. It seems to me that, you know, if you're open for business, there's probably it's probably going to be less trucks in the city, because we're going to have a lot fewer trucks coming in from out of town. You know, I don't know, but it seems to me that may be the case. But I think maybe a more detailed answer. You give yourself some time to think it out.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm going to formalize and make these my proposed conditions in a little more detail, and I'll distribute them to everybody as well. And I'd ask everybody, I'm going to be able to get these conditions to people tomorrow, and then I would ask if anyone has any additional conditions or any proposed modifications. You know, and I'm speaking to the council, to my conditions, to get them to the city clerk, so we can try to put together a uniform list. If this is something the council does want to approve, we obviously have to approve it with conditions. Having said that, is there any other member of the council that has any input at this time, or any questions at this time? Okay. I'd ask the clerk, when do you, we're going to have to continue the public hearing. What's a good available date and time?
So our next meeting's December 14th, and we're looking to have our tax classification hearing at 6 o'clock that night. And then we also have a public hearing for Councilor Bedanza's petition at 6:50.
6:50?
Yes. We could probably slip it in between the tax classification and that, depending on how much time you think the tax classification will need.
Madam Clerk, I would suggest that the tax classification hearing probably, I mean, I don't know. I've been on the council for 7 years. I never heard a serious argument for anything but factor of one. 20 minutes maybe. We could allot for that.
So then I would suggest 6:20 on December 14th.
That's fine. That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, perfect. We'll get that out.
Does that work for the applicant?
Yes, can I just ask, when is the deadline for all questions and concerns to be turned in, so I can prepare statements?
I was hoping we could get those to you within the week. Does anybody need additional time? I'll just throw that out to the council. If you need additional time, please speak now. Otherwise, we could have them all in to the clerk 1 week from today, and then she can get them out to Mr. Fratticelli. Anybody have a problem with that?
May I just...
Chief, does that work for you?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Councilor Dombrowski, can I just pop in real quick? It's Caitlin.
Sure.
Mr. Fraticelli, if you could get the correspondence back to me by December 10th at about noon, that'd be extremely beneficial because that's when we send out our packets for the agenda for the 14th. So we'll give them enough time to review.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I
Okay.
have one other question.
Sure.
You know, the information that we were seeking tonight that Mr. Fraticelli thought someone on the council was getting, who is going to get that so that there'll be no more confusion? We'll have that.
I think, I thought it was a cost factor. My memory is that the question was asked is that was a condition, that Mr. Fraticelli would agree to, not necessarily whether we're going to impose it or not, but whether it was something he would agree to, so we could just get it out of the discussion realm. And the response was he didn't know what something like that would cost. And my memory was that that was something that he was going to look into, not necessarily finding someone, but just, you know, with the help of his people, what something like that should cost. I think what
Counselor, it's the fire chief. Counselor, it's the
Line.
fire chief. I think I can help with this.
Okay.
I believe it was that, it was kind of turned over to us to see if we could find some engineers or, reach out to the state. So we reached out to the state. The problem with me going out for engineers is, I have to go through the purchasing agent. We'd have to do an RFP in the whole 9 yards. It's I don't know anybody offhand that I could actually call and ask, but that was, I think that's what was left at the meeting. And then after we thought about it was, I really can't go shopping for anybody.
Well,
And it was, we reached back to my,
Chief, if I may, you're not going to shop for anybody. We're
yeah,
going to pick somebody, and then the applicant's going to pay for it.
sure, yeah.
So there's no need to.
But I didn't really have anybody. I reached out to the state and they basically turned it back on us, so.
That's fine. All right. All right. Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Paul Foley.
Yes.
So I understand that there's going to be a list of questions that's going to be circulated by the council members. But I also understood from your comments that you were going to circulate a list of conditions. Is that also something that we would get in advance?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And you know, as to the, I know that we've gone round and around on the engineers. You know, I think that's pretty well discussed in the codes. So I think it's something that we can deal with in our comments back to the council.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that, Attorney Foley.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilor Feckley.
Go ahead, Councilor Feckley.
Okay, just as a matter of logistics, and I don't, mean to give Mr. Fraticelli more work to do, but it seems that many of us have some of the information he sent us to date, and some of us do not. So I'm wondering if it might be prudent for him to send us a packet of everything he feels as though we need to be able to go forward with this. I'm missing a couple of things that have been mentioned tonight. And like I said, I know it'll be more work for him, but I think in the long run, it would be beneficial for him to do that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, at this point, tonight's hearing will end, and the public hearing will continue on December 14th, 2020 at 6:20 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
And I'll refer this back to the president.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to need to call this meeting to order. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty,
And
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, I'm going to take the call of the councils in attendance, starting with Councilor Frida,
Present.
Councilor Dombrowski,
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Present.
Councilor Feckley,
Present.
Councilor Angelini,
Present.
Councilor Ottinger,
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Present.
Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
I shall be recorded as present. All 9 councilors are in attendance. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
I do, Mr. President. I have the minutes of our last city council meeting on November 9th, 2020. And there are just a few minor edits. I will get to the city clerk. But there was an edit that Councilor Shalfo Zephyr wanted to point out, so I will ask her to do so.
Oh, this is Councilor Shalfo Zephyr. I can send that to the city clerk. It was a minor edit on page 3, I think, a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right,
Okay,
so other than that, Mr. President, I find the minutes to be in order and ask they be placed on file.
Very well. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. There's someone who's got some activity going on in the background. I don't know if you can identify that, Madam Clerk, where that's coming from. I don't know.
Let me. Yep, I just got it.
Okay, thank
Is
you.
that better?
It's much better.
Okay.
All right, so at this point, I'd entertain a motion to recess because we have a couple of interviews that were scheduled for 6:45.
Make
And we
that
also have
motion.
a public forum. Okay, motioned by Councilor David Cormier. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Angelini. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, we are in recess, and I will turn over the interviews to the chairwoman of Ways and Means, Councilor Feckley.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, we have 2 interviews this evening, and the first interview is with Mr. Henry Fry. We have a measure confirming the mayor's appointment of Henry Fry to the position of the Board of Appeals, term to expire April 15th, 2023. Do we have Mr. Fry on the line?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Thank you for coming to our virtual interview. We're sorry that we can't interview you in person, but this is how we've been doing business of late. And what we do here is have you introduce yourself to the city council, although I'm sure many of the council know you already, and also, very importantly, to the public. You could give us a little bit of information on your background and how you feel you could benefit the Board of Appeals. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, yeah. My name is Henry Fry. I'm a retired CPA, was in practice for 35 years here in Leominster. And I went to Bentley University in Waltham, graduated in 1974, and a Massachusetts CPA since 1977. I worked for a couple of, prior to my own practice, I worked for a couple of CPA firms in Worcester and a couple of years in 2 different Fortune 500 companies. Most of my accounting experience was dealing with the construction industry and manufacturing. And I understand the Board of Appeals function is to evaluate decisions by the building inspector, either for or against the citizens of Leominster, basically to either enhance the enforcement of the zoning ordinance as written, or to alleviate an unfair treatment, shall we say, of a property owner because of the way the zoning ordinance is written.
Mhm. Okay. So, Mr. Fry, it sounds like you've had some experience with clients that have had to work with the planning board or the Board of Appeals, or that had found themselves up against some of the zoning ordinances. You had to work through all that with them.
Yes,
That's
I had, because of my construction background, it was often a topic of discussion depending upon what kind of a project was going on.
Right. It's all different rules and regulations. And have you had a chance to get caught up on some of the new zoning ordinances for the city of Leominster since you've been active?
Yeah, I was given a draft of the new zoning ordinance that may be enacted shortly, and the former zoning ordinance. So I've kind of reacclimated myself because it's been a few years since I was involved with any of my clients in one of these cases.
Right. But we'll hope that it's kind of like riding a bike. You can just pick it up from where you left off.
Oh, well, we hope it's that easy.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now, Mr. Fry, is I am going to have you speak with Councilor Frida. She is the second member of our committee. And Councilor Frida, do you have any comments or questions for Mr. Fry?
No, I'm good. I know Mr. Fry, and I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. And Councilor Dabrowski, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Fry?
I don't have any questions. I've known Mr. Fry for many years. I think he's going to be an excellent addition to the Board of Appeals, and I just want to thank him for volunteering and being available for this.
Okay, thank you. Any other councilors have any questions or comments for Mr. Fry? Did I hear a voice? Any other councilors? Okay, I hope I'm not missing anybody. Okay, Mr. Fry, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We will be taking up the matter of appointments later on in the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Okay, our next interview is with Virginia Tossi. We have a measure confirming the mayor's appointment of Virginia Tossi to the position of the Housing Authority, term to expire April 15th, 2025. Do we have Ms. Tossi on the line?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, nice to have you. Again, as we said, we would prefer to have you here, before us, but that's not the case during these times. But we appreciate your time this evening. I know that many people call you Ginny. May I call you Ginny?
Yes, of course.
All right. And we know, Ginny, that you were obviously a longtime city councilor, so you know what the interview process is all about. But just for the public, again, we are going to be just interviewing you so that we so you can introduce yourself to the public and give them an idea of how you could benefit the Housing Authority. So just give us a little bit of your background, and I'll hand it over to you at this time.
Okay. Actually, I am already on the Leominster Housing. I have been for almost 5 years. I took the place of Father Doran when he moved out of Leominster. So this is more of a reappointment because my term was up. And so yes, I've been on the council. I was on the council 12 years. I owned Joseph's Jewelers, downtown Leominster, 35 years, and retired in 2017. I've been active in the Housing Authority. I am secretary, and I am also on the LDA. And it's trying at these times. We do the Zoom thing, and but there's a lot of people out there that need help, and that's what I'm there for, is for public service.
Yes. Well, if we knew that this was a reappointment, we wouldn't necessarily have had you in for an interview, but I think that it's also good to have somebody that's been doing so much good service to the city, you know, let us know about it, especially as you said, during this time. You must be coming up with quite a few different scenarios than in the past. So, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody, everybody appreciates all the good work that you've done. Again, this would be now obviously a very informal interview, but I'm sure that some of the council would like to just speak with you very briefly. So I am going to turn this over to Councilor Frida.
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Claire.
I've known Jenny for a long time, and I know this is a reappointment, but, you know, however you look at it, she's just been an incredible asset to the city. Just knowing Jenny on a personal level, she's always concerned about people's ability to have housing and to be able to make sure children are taken care of. It's just a character of Jenny, and participating as a member of the Housing Authority. She's already proven her worth, and she was modest in her resume because there's a lot of other things she's done in the community, and most of us know what those are. So I'm happy to see you continue, Jenny, and certainly have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Frida. Councilor Dombrowski?
Hey, Jenny, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. No, I don't have any questions. I can't think of anyone better suited for this position than Jenny Tossi. Worked with her for many, many years, and I'm well aware of how much she does for the community and all the housing authorities. So obviously has my full support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dabrowski. Any other councilors have any comments or questions for Jenny?
Yes, Councilor Feckley, Mark Bedanza.
Go right ahead, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Ginny, thank you very much for your volunteer work for the city, especially in this important position. I apologize to you that this should have been a reappointment and would not have necessitated you to come in for this interview or have this virtual interview. But I guess the upside is we all get to say hello, which is always nice. So
Yeah.
I wanted to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, you and your family. And again, thank you for your service to the city in so many different capacities.
Thank you.
Any other councilors have any comments or questions for Ginny?
Yes, Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Go right ahead, Councilor Cormier.
Ginny, I just wanted to wish you and Joe a very happy Thanksgiving. And also to explain to the council, and maybe they might blame you or not, but Ginny is one of the big reasons why I ran for city council and am involved in the city council now. So if you like me, great. If you don't like me, it's Ginny's fault.
Councilor Cormier, I like you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenny, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Any other councilors?
Councilor Feckley, it's Councilor Shallow.
Oh, go right ahead. Go right ahead,
Oh,
Councilor
sorry about that.
Zephyr.
No, I just want to say hi, Jenny.
Hi, Sue.
How are you?
I'm good. Everybody's healthy. Hope everyone's healthy there too.
Knock on wood. So far, so good. No, housing is just such a very important, concern. It can be certainly a challenge for people in Leominster and in the area. So the Housing Authority does a fantastic job with all of its various properties. And especially with our senior population, they need some extra care these days. And I know that the Housing Authority is working hard to make sure that everybody feels safe. So I just want to say thank you very much. And I thought it was a reappointment. I was surprised when I saw that because I knew that you were on the Housing Authority board. But thank you very much for your service, and say happy Thanksgiving to Joe.
I will. Thank you.
Any other counselors? All right, Ginny, thank you very much for coming, and I'll echo the president's words that we're sorry about the mix-up, but I think in the long run, people appreciated that you were here for us to chat with you. And I know for myself that, you know, you've always been somebody who is, you know, very well known in the community for a lot of things that you do and as a successful businesswoman. And we really appreciate that you're going to be continuing on with the Housing Authority. And as you said, you know, during these difficult times. So thank you very, very much. And I hope we didn't take up too much of your time.
No.
We'll welcome you to the rest of your term. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome, Mr. President.
We'll now move on to the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on a matter appearing on our agenda this evening? And the second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an item appearing on our agenda this evening? And the third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? Hearing none, I'll declare the public forum closed. We're now back out of recess in session, and we will move on to communications from the mayor, starting with orders.
C39, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $364,875 be made to the Park Capital Outlay Expense Account, Frankie Fortuna Skate Park, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund regarding full funding for the Frankie Fortuna Skate Park. Project total cost $364,875. Park grant $248,115. Local costs will be $116,760.
C39 shall be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time, calendar, regular.
Very well. C39 is given regular course. We'll now move on to communications, starting with C40.
C40, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the City Council vote of support by resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities Grant Program for the renovation and expansion of the Johnson Street Skate Park at the corner of Johnson and Carter Streets in the city of Leominster.
C40 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, please.
Very well. C40 has been given regular course. We'll now move on to C41.
C41, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the annual tax classification hearing be scheduled for December 14th, 2020, for the purpose of setting the annual factor used for fiscal year 2021.
C41 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course.
Very well. C41 has been given regular course. Moving on to C42.
C42, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the City Council vote of support by resolution for Guardian Angel Senior Services located at 29 Main Street, Leominster, Mass, regarding tax incentive financing agreement.
C42 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course. And could we invite the principals in to be able to answer any questions the council may have?
Very well, that may be done, Madam Clerk. C42 has been given regular course with an invitation to the principals for the next meeting. C43.
C43, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that John Joffrey be exempt from the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, 20B, Conflict of Interest. Mr. Joffrey is currently employed by the City of Leominster as a master craftsman of the building department and will be taking a part-time position as a part-time night custodian.
C43 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course, but I would have a question for the mayor, where Mr. Joffrian will be a part-time night custodian.
I believe that's at City Hall. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That's correct. The other one retired.
Oh, okay. All right, then that's verification enough for me, so I don't need a referral. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. C43 has been given regular course. Moving on to petitions, first time on the agenda, starting with 23-21.
23-21, Caitlin Huffman, City Clerk, request to accept a resolution authorizing the policy regarding electioneering during absentee voting for the 2021 municipal elections.
23-21 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
First time on the agenda, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well. Petition 23-21 has been given regular course. Moving on to 24-21.
24-21, Caitlin Huffman, City Clerk, request to accept the attached election schedule and set September 21st, 2021 as a date for the preliminary election to be held for the purpose of nominating candidates for citywide office. This is the sixth Tuesday preceding the regular city election, which will be held on November 2nd, 2021.
24-21 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, first time on the agenda, regular course.
Very well. 24-21 has been given regular course. Moving on to 25-21.
25-21, Elizabeth Wood, Economic Development and Planning Director, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to home occupations. See attached letter.
25-21 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course with a referral to the planning board director, the building inspector, and the zoning board of appeals.
Very well. And you want to handle the setting of the public hearing right now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so the suggestion is a public hearing on January 11th, 2021 at 6:35 p.m.
That's correct.
Okay, all those in favor of setting the hearing on 25-21 for that date, January 11th, 2021 at 6:35, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 25-21 has been given regular course with referrals to the planning board, planning director, the building inspector, and the zoning board of appeals, and a hearing date set at January 11th, 2021 at 6:35 p.m. Moving on to 26-21.
26-21, Elizabeth Wood, Economic Development and Planning Director, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to lot frontage and adding a definition for paper streets. See attached letter.
26-21 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course with a referral to the planning board director, the building inspector, and the zoning board of appeals. And we need to vote to establish a public hearing for January 11th, 2021 at 6:40 p.m.
I've heard the recommendation for the establishment of a public hearing on 26-21 on January 11th, 2021 at 6:40 p.m. All those in favor of setting the hearing date, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the hearing has been established for January 11th, 2021 at 6:40 p.m. on 26-21, which has been given regular course with referrals to the planning board, planning director, building inspector, and zoning board of appeals. Moving on to 27-21.
27-21, Elizabeth Wood, Economic Development and Planning Director, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to solar. See attached letter. regarding amend Article 3, Table of Uses regarding solar use in Article 15, Section 22-104, Solar Ordinance.
27-21 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course with a referral to the planning board director, the building inspector, the zoning board of appeals, and the director of the health department. And we also need to establish a public hearing date of January 11th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m.
Very well. You heard the recommendation to establish a public hearing on 27-21 for January 11th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. All in favor of that hearing date, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, a hearing date of January 11th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. has been established for 27-21, which has been given regular course with referrals to the planning board, planning director, building inspector, and zoning board of appeals. Moving on to 28-21.
28-21, Elizabeth Wood, Economic Development and Planning Director, request to amend the zoning ordinance to include provision for regulating commercial kitchens.
28-21 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course with a referral to the planning board director, the building inspector, the zoning board of appeals, and the director of the health department. We also need to establish a public hearing for January 11th, 2021 at 6:50 p.m.
Very well. You've heard the recommendation, Chairman of Legal Affairs, to establish a public hearing date on 28-21 for January 11th, 2021 at 6:50 p.m. All those in favor of establishing a hearing date as such, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 28-21 has been given regular course with a referral to the planning director, planning board, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, and the health director, and a public hearing date of January 11th, 2021 at 6:50 p.m. Before we move on to matters before the council, I want to go back to the C-41 and Chairman of Finance. Could we establish the hearing date on that petition, that communication from the mayor, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I apologize, I forgot to do that.
No problem.
It was public hearing, December 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m. on C-41, which is for the annual tax classification.
Very well. You've heard the recommendation from the Chairman of Finance to establish a hearing date on the annual tax classification comprising communication C-41 on December 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m. All those in favor of establishing the hearing date, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the hearing date has been established. We can now move to matters before the City Council, starting with the City of Leominster financial report. Is the Chairman of Finance ready to give the report?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you very much. We started fiscal year 2021 off on July 1 with $14,189,152.27. We have since added, when cash for fiscal year 19 was certified, plus we've earned, we've added $7,416,303.19 to date, and pending the current appropriations that are even the ones that are on there for the first time this evening. If those are passed next meeting, we will have spent $2,330,905, leaving us with a balance of $19,274,550.46. And that, Mr. President, is the financial report.
Any questions on the financial report from the council? Okay, moving on to C-33. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-33, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Request an appropriation of $1,846,172 to be made to the school department expense account, the same amount to be raised by fiscal year 2021 revenue. This is regarding state aid estimate for tax cutting purposes. As everyone knows, we we do have to set the tax rate here. That is coming up. We have that deadline. And, there's been a lot of delays in the budget from the state this year. So the city was holding out to try to get either a card number or kind of see what was going on Beacon Hill so that they could make a very, very good, close estimation of what the state aid estimate was going to be for this year. And the number that has been given, obviously, is the one that's before us, $1,846,172. And we need to pass this appropriation so that we can be prepared to set the tax rate. So it would be my recommendation, Mr. President, to move forward. And I just would like to add that I had a discussion today with the superintendent, who, by the way, is on the line in case anybody feels the need to ask any questions. If so, we could have the opportunity to recess if the council wishes. But she does feel that, or she told me that feels everything is, in pretty good shape financially at the moment. So it would be my opinion, Mr. President, that we grant C-30, and I will ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well, Mr. President.
Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of Finance to grant C-33. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question, Councilor Frida. Is
Very well.
this amount necessary to meet net school spending?
Is this amount necessary to meet net school spending? Is that your question?
Yes.
I would have to say yes.
Okay. Just, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call vote, starting with Councilor Frida.
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Hardinger.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-33 is granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $1,856,172 be appropriated to the school department expense account, the same amount to be raised by fiscal year 2021 revenue. This is regarding state aid estimate for tax rate setting purposes. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-34, is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-34, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $220,534 to be made to the school department expense account, the same amount to be raised from fiscal year 2021 revenue. What this is, I had a discussion with John Richards. Basically, the FCC, this is regarding an FY21 E-rate revenue. FCC has a certain tax that they charge on telecommunications, and that money goes to the school department. Every year, the school department does get this money, and this year it's going through us, and we are just appropriating it right over to them. I did not ask the superintendent how they spend this money. If anybody has a desire to know, we can certainly ask her, but, they always say they want more money, so they're giving this over to them, and, I'm in favor of it, but if anybody has a question, we can recess and ask. So it would be my opinion, Mr. President, that we grant C-34.
You've heard the recommendation. Let me check with members of your committee. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Counselor Angelini.
I'm in agreement.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-35. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Council Frida again.
Yes, Counselor.
Did I understand you to say, Mr. Chairman, that this was money that was received and being turned over to the school department?
That is correct.
And why are we raising it in the taxes?
I think the money was sent to the general fund based on the way that they get the rebates. In the past, the school committee used a different process to develop these rebates. This time, on whoever did it, the money's ended up with the general fund. They have historically belonged to the schools, and that's why the city is opting to return it to the schools.
That is correct.
It's not part of the tax. It's not part of the tax rate.
This is the first year that it has come through us, what needed to be by comptroller.
All right.
Any further discussion by the council? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor Frida?
Okay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger?
Yay.
I'm sorry, Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger?
Yay.
Get the vote twice, Frank. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
I shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-34 is granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order the sum of $220,534 be appropriated to the school department expense account, the same amount to be raised by fiscal year 2020 revenue. This is regarding estimate FY 2021 E-rate revenue. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-35, is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-35, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $25,000 be made to the landfill expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund regarding landfill repairs. We do have a letter here from Christopher Knuth, dated October 21st, 2020. This is regarding additional appropriation request to complete the necessary repairs to the Mechanic Street landfill. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, the city of Leominster retained a contractor to complete the necessary repairs to the Mechanic Street landfill in 2018. Some of the work has been completed, but when excavation exposed the cap, the subsurface conditions found were not designed or built. Accumulation of sand at the edge of the membrane along the connector suggests some subcap erosion has occurred. This erosion caused subsidence, allowing large stones to contact the membrane. Due to the conditions encountered, a different plan was needed to stop the erosion. Instead of excavating and replacing the sand layers, we proposed to fill the surface and stabilize it with broken rock instead of a topsoil cover. The contractor thought they would be able to complete the work without additional funds being needed. Unfortunately, Woodward and Curran had to complete a modification permit for a formal Mass DEP review. This additional engineering work depleted the funds originally allocated for the project. Construction oversight, report writing, and material testing will still be required for the before we are respectfully requesting an additional amount of $25,000 to fund the required engineering services. Thank you for the consideration of this request. Obviously, this has been before us in the past. There clearly was some erosion and it has to be fixed. And this is obviously a requirement by the DEP, so it would be my recommendation, Mr. President, that we grant C-35, and I'll ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yeah, this is necessary. I agree.
And Councilor Angelini?
I certainly find Director Knuth's explanation quite viable, and I would be supportive as well, Mr. President.
Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-35. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call vote. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger?
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-35 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $25,000 be appropriated to the landfill expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund regarding landfill repairs. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-36. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-36, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $16,000 be made to the Police Department Capital Outlay Expense Account. Same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. This is regarding a boiler replacement. Interim Chief of Police Aaron Kennedy sent a letter to the mayor on November 3rd, 2020. We are formally requesting an additional appropriation in the amount of $16,000 to our building and grounds account for replacement of the boiler. We have received a rough estimate at this time to which this amount represents the worst case scenario. Once the replacement work is complete, the old boiler will be sent back to the manufacturer for inspection to verify if there are any part of it failure that will be covered by a warranty. There is a fair chance that the city will recoup some of the replacement costs. I was in contact today with the interim chief, and he did indicate to me that this piece of equipment is, relatively speaking, not that old. Within the past, I think he said about 10 years ago, and it's already giving us a problem. So it does need to be replaced. Matter of fact, that it was not working today as we were speaking, him and I. So it's hopefully he's hoping that we're not going to have any like bitterly cold weather anytime soon, because he doesn't know when it'll be up and running. But there is a chance that some of this might be covered under warranty, and they got to check into that. But in the meantime, they have to have heat in the building, and so it would be my recommendation that we grant C-36, Mr. President, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I'll make it unanimous, Mr.
Very
President.
well. You've heard his unanimous recommendation from Finance to grant C-36. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger?
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-36 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $16,000 be appropriated to the landfill expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund, boiler replacement. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor of adopting the order, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The order has been adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-37, does the chairman have a report?
Yes, President, C-37, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, an appropriation of $57,463 made to the Cemetery Capital Outlay Expense Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Income Account. I did have a discussion today with Mr. Racine, who is the head of the DPW, and he indicated to me that the vehicle that they are looking to replace is a 16-year-old vehicle, and it indicates to me that they, use this vehicle for plowing and whatnot, as well as the cemetery, so it really does take a beating. It's a one-ton dump truck with a 9-foot plow as well. So he did indicate that it, after 16 years, just the general wear and tear, that it does need replacement. And so it would be my recommendation, Mr. President, that we grant C-37, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I agree as well.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-37, or is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger?
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-37 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Of $57,463 be appropriated to the cemetery capital expense account. Same amount to be transferred from the cemetery perpetual care income account. This is regarding a cemetery truck. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to legal affairs, in 17-21, is the chairman ready to report?
And Mr. President, petition 17-21, Stephen Fraticelli of Fraticelli Oil Company, Inc. Request to amend flammable liquids license from 335,000 gallons to 575,000 gallons of flammable liquids at 239 Litchfield Street. We'll continue the public hearing to December 14th, 2020 at 6:20 p.m. Therefore, the recommendation is further time. Again, anyone who has any questions, please get them in within the week to the city clerk. Thank you.
I'm going to let the Madam Vice President take this vote because I have formally recused myself from 17-21.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've heard the recommendation of Legal Affairs to give 17-21 further time. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's Councilor David
Go
Cormier.
right ahead, Councilor Cormier.
If I may, just for starters, I would like to ask that we get a formal letter from the applicant asking the amendment of the reduction of his request, the reduction of the gallonage, and as part of the map, that we get a new map with the reduction of the storage on the map as well, just so that it's very clear which tanks that would contain that storage are being removed. Obviously, the map is going to change as well. They need to remove some of the tanks and stuff from the map. So I'd like to see all that reflected in as part of the discussion going forward. Thank you.
Okay, we could ask the city clerk to reach out to the petitioner and ask him for that information.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, this will be by roll call vote. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski? Sorry, missed you.
Yay.
Council Angelini,
Yay.
Council Ardner,
Yay.
Council Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Council David Cormier.
Yay.
And that will be recorded as yay or vote of 8-0. 1721 has been given further time.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to 22-21, is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Petition 22-21, Mark C. Bedanza, Ward 4 Counselor, and David R. Cormier, Ward 3 Counselor. Request to amend Section 2-14 of Article 3 of the revised ordinances for City of Leominster as follows. By deleting, quote, "all meetings of the council shall be held in the municipal building in the event of a public emergency or other condition which renders it impossible for the council to hold any meeting in the city hall. The council will hold a meeting at the Leominster High School, and substituting in its place the following language therein. Quote, "all meetings of the council shall be held in the municipal building in the event of a public emergency or other condition which renders it impossible for the council to hold any meeting in the city hall. The council shall be permitted to conduct its meetings at the Emergency Management Operations Center or the Leominster High School." There's a public hearing scheduled for December 14th, 2020 at 6:50 p.m. Therefore, the recommendation is further time.
Okay, so we actually have to vote on your recommendation of further time as well as establishing that public hearing date. The other members of Legal Affairs okay with both of those recommendations?
I am.
Councilor Michelle Zephyr, I am.
All right, very well. So the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs is to grant 22-21 further time and establish a public hearing on 12/14/2020. All those in favor of establishing those two things further time in that hearing date, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 22-21 has been given further time with a public hearing date of December 14th, 2020 at 6:50 p.m. Moving on to C-32, is the chairman of Legal Affairs ready to report?
I am. Thank you, Mr. President. Communication 32, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the City Council review and accept the water supply and development agreement between the City of Leominster and 702 LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to tell you that I know that there's been some material distributed to review, I think, in connection with this. And I will also say that the principals and the mayor are all, I believe, all on the line. So if you or your committee deems it advisable to recess, I'm sure we can perhaps make that happen.
There's a lot of static, Mr. President.
I hear that.
I don't know. Well, I know we're awaiting a referral from the DPW. I don't know if that's come in yet or not.
It has not yet come in.
I mean, well, why don't I move for a recess, Mr. President?
Yeah, we might check if the DPW is on the line. That may be part of the confusion. So if somebody wants to move for a recess, maybe we can entertain that motion.
I move for recess.
We have a second?
I'll second. Mr.
Councilor Angelini, seconded. All those in favor of recessing, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, we are in recess. I'll let you take it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you're on the line, and if you are, who else might be accompanying you? If you could introduce.
We've been on hold for about an hour, so I'm not sure exactly who's on and who we lost. So, is our attorney Matt Frere? Are you on?
Matt Frere's not here tonight. We have Matt Saragu from KP Law is on the line.
Okay. Matt's here. Okay. Thank you. And Mr. DePetri, the two brothers DePetri, are you on?
Yes, we're on the line.
So that would be Bob and Bill.
Bob and Bill, yep.
Okay, and Roger Brooks, are you on with us as well?
Yep. I haven't fallen asleep yet.
All right, and what about what about Ray Racine? Is Ray on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, let me just kind of give an overall, if you don't mind. Would that be better?
No, not at all. Please do.
Okay. Just to get some background on this, we many years ago tried to work with the town of Lancaster to come up with an intermunicipal agreement for SOAR, and that broke down many times over the years. This particular development group came to us with a little bit of a different, it's 702 LLC, came to us with a little bit of a different approach to it all. And more of, if you think of it this way, more of a service, a utility service to their property rather than an intermunicipal agreement. So what would happen is they control a number of the acres, and I'll let them explain that to you, and if you wish. But they control a number of the parcels that are on that Route 70 project there, and so they would like to get water, and so the water is, water is available from other towns as well. It's a little longer. There are many economic sort of impacts to this, but not impossible. But they approached us, and there's some benefits to us supplying the water. First, we have excess capacity. We'll be able to provide water to a segment or a portion of Johnny Appleseed Lane that doesn't have it, and there'll also be some revenue that will come back to the city. Now, what's different about this proposal is that in the past, our standard policy has been, well, we're not going to receive a minimum receivable on something, a water or sewer connection, and then provide for our own competition. So, for instance, Leominster is heavily involved in retail. Right now, we're doing okay. Overall, we're doing much better than we expected. The mall has some vacancies, obviously, but the other malls are strip malls, et cetera, malls, outdoor lifestyle centers are in decent shape. But if you look at the overall picture, we're pretty heavily involved in retail. So we did not want to create our own competition. Leominster is looking for at least another hotel. We've been courting a number of different companies. We don't want to, again, provide water to pieces of property that we're going to create our own competition. So in this particular agreement, we have a say in each proposal. For instance, it probably isn't likely that we could handle a mega warehouse distribution center. It's probably unlikely. So in this particular agreement, we get a say. We get an approval. We get to say that's a project that we don't have any problem providing water to, and to take it a step further, even on the resale. Now, what happened at Devon's is they say, well, if a tenant can't find anything in Leominster or whatever town it might be in, then they can go ahead and build. But what we found later is that when the buildings were empty, they were bringing in new tenants that could have clearly come to Leominster, but their answer is, well, we don't own those buildings anymore. We don't have any control. So we wanted to make sure that we have control even on the resale or release of the particular property. And so that's what makes this proposal different. They still follow all the same regulations that we do. If there's a water ban, they follow a water ban. If there's, whatever, and there are a number of technical pieces here. Ray Racine had some questions. Those were answered by the investment company, LLC, and just the other day. So those are, I don't know whether everybody has a copy of those, but that's the overall concept of what this is doing. Basically providing water service to a segment of a piece of properties that the LLC owns. So we're not doing a intermunicipal agreement. We're basically, think of an extension cord. We're going to take the extension cord. We're going to plug it in on the Leominster side. We're going to run it into these properties. And again, as you see in the documents that you have there in front of you tonight, it is pretty extensive. I don't know, Matt, if you want to sort of comment on some of these areas here on the technical end.
I think you covered it, Mr. Mayor, very well. I would just add, KP Law has been involved in this from the beginning. We've been working very well with the other side. In our opinion, this agreement covers the town's, the city's potential liabilities and the concerns pretty well. There's, the standard indemnification provisions. There will be a $250 $50,000 connection fee up front, along with the regular billing rates that will be applicable to the 702 entities. It will run to all of their successors and assigns. The city will have a pretty streamlined billing procedure where they're really just billing the single entity, and 702 is collecting on their end. And we've included the city's right to lien property in the event of non-payment. So, the policy concerns are obviously for you guys, but from a legal standpoint, it's our opinion that this agreement is pretty sound on the city's behalf.
And could I just say, Mr. Chairman, let me just touch on one other area I think that needs consideration. So if this LLC and this group decides, and I'm not saying they would do this as a sort of a strategy plan here, but and one of the reasons that I decided to get involved in talks with them is because if they went to Devon's or they went to Shirley or they went to another town to bring in the water, that we would have absolutely no say in how they use that water supply. And, the trade-off for us was we provide the water, but we have some say in how that gets distributed, to whom it gets distributed, the kinds of businesses. And again, we're not trying to control what they're trying to do as much as it is, not providing, holding the door open while, we're creating our own competition. And again, we'll receive, funds and revenue and receipts from the water services. But again, that was something that played into it, is our ability to have a say in it versus if they go to another town or another resource area, bring that water in, or if they drill wells or whatever it might be. Today, buildings just don't use the water that, that they used to use. And we're a prime example of that in our city. And so that was another key reason why we would get involved in this sort of an agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just ask the attorney, in the event of non-payment, exactly what is the mechanism by which the city would get a lien on the property?
Mm-hmm. So it would follow the same procedures as provided for in the general laws for property within the city. It would just be more of an action in contract than it would be in those statutory provisions. But if you look at, if you have the agreement right in front of you, we have Section 11 is a standard provision we would generally use in this type of agreement that secures payment through lien.
And would that involve initiating a court action?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you use the courts, but you could file the lien. You wouldn't need to file a complaint necessarily.
And if I could just ask Roger and Ray, if they could just, we didn't get a referral from you guys, if you guys could just sort of weigh in on that now, just to expedite things.
Ray, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Most of my stuff was technical and installation and city specifications and the types of materials used. And that information came back to us today, so we didn't really have time to write a formal recommendation. I guess if there's another plus to this, now all of Upper Johnny Appleseed Lane will have fire protection, which they don't have at this point. So that's another benefit to the city. If any wells fail up there, they can also connect to now the city water. So there's two pluses to the resident setting.
Okay.
And from my standpoint,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roger.
From my standpoint, when you look at the consumption, it would translate to about 50,000 gallons, $50,000 a year in the revenue stream over and above what we would get, let's say, if you were putting it on the lawns. If you had let's say, a lawn system for irrigation and you were using it at the in-town rate, they're going to pay the out-of-town rate, so you pick up an additional $50,000 a year in the difference in rate structure between the two consumptions. And it does provide the ability for us to control the water. If there's an issue, we just go into the meter pit at the town line and we can terminate the water flow instantaneously. So got a pretty good control over what the flow of water is going into the property. And inside this contract, this is a 25-year agreement with a revision at the end of the 25 years, similar to the intermunicipal agreements we have, both with Lancaster and Lunenburg on our wastewater. So it's pretty similar in a lot of ways, and like Ray said, it does benefit a good segment of the Leominster community as well.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. I'd go to members of my committee. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr, any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councilor Dombrowski. This may be for the KP law attorney who's here, but what if the city of Leominster had some kind of catastrophic event that eliminated a good portion of our water supply in Leominster? If we lost the Downtown Reservoir for, some period of time, or we had significantly reduced capacity of water in Leominster. Is there something in that contract that would put Leominster residents kind of in front of outside external water purchasers? How would that work? How would that work if we had significantly reduced capacity?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead,
Matt, I can help you a little bit with that. This is Roger again. So right now we have 4 million gallons that we can deal with at No Town, 2 million gallons at distributing, 1 million at Fallbrook, and 1.5 million out of the well fields. So you've got 100% redundancy right now internally. We actually have some filters offline as we speak. So we've got the ability to have redundancy. In a catastrophic situation, going back to the emergency situation which existed with the drought of record in the 60s, where we had to run an emergency line from Wachusett Reservoir up to up Central Street right there at the interchange with Willard Street. We would have to tie into that. But you're talking a catastrophic event, and that would be more than just, one system being down. We can interchange between the two. We have an intermunicipal connection that we can use with Lunenburg for some small volumes, depending on what it is. But so we have the ability to coordinate and change flows from one system to the other, which is why we did the upgrade at the Pond Street pump station 2 years ago. If you remember, the council voted on that SRF loan, and so that's a tremendous benefit to us to redirect flows from a source that would have volume to a source that would not be either having a volume or be online. So those would be the options, Councilor.
Thank you, Roger. What's the additional capacity projected to be? What's the additional volume that this agreement covers?
This maxes out at 100,000 gallons a day.
And what's that?
We're using approximately 3.9.
We use 3.9 a day million?
Yep.
We use 3.9 million gallons a day in the city, and this is adding an additional 100,000 gallons per day?
Right.
Is that right?
Correct. And your system is rated for 4.9.
4.9 is our maximum capacity.
Right.
Right?
That's what our registration allows us to withdraw.
.025%, Councilor, just did the quick math.
Right, but that gets us to our maximum capacity in terms of what we can withdraw. Is that correct, Roger? You just said 4.9.
Yeah, 4.94 is the total volume you could take, and 3.9 is what we're taking right now.
Yeah, and if you add 100,000 gallons to that, you get to the 4.94, right?
No, you only get to 4. You'd be at 4.0. Remember, you're in million gallons a day versus, you know, so you're going
We're not
from
adding another million, we're adding 100,000.
Right. So you're going from 3,900,000.
Yep, got it. Okay. I was doing math here quickly in my head, and I shouldn't have been. Okay, no, thank you, that helps.
Anything else, Councilor Zephyr?
Not at the moment, Council, thank you.
Councilor Cormier, any questions?
I'm all set for the moment, thank you.
Okay, does any other member of the city council have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilor Frida.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Frida.
Just a point. Maybe Roger can tell us. Over the years, we used a lot of water supply and a lot of the companies we had here. Do you have an idea what the reduction in consumption has been over the years with some of these companies that no longer use as much as they used to?
Well, going back to, let's say, 1999, 2000, we used to use approximately 2 units of water. So we've reduced our consumption in Leominster over the last 21 years, 22 years by approximately 25%. Because we're billing out at approximately 1.45 1,450,000 units on average over the last 4 or 5 years, and it used to be like 2 million to 1.9 to 2.1 right in there when we were first doing it in 1998, 99, right at that time. So you've lost 25% of your consumption is the short version.
Okay. I know you and I spoke when this first came to our attention and came on the agenda. And I did speak with somebody else involved in the project as well. And there just doesn't seem to be too many negatives to this. Taking care of the Johnny Appleseed area, for one thing. I mean, I think that's pretty crucial. Those people deserve to have the ability to tie in. They also should be entitled to fire safety up in that area. I also think we're missing the point of the possibility of some good jobs for whatever may be built in Lancaster. I think we have some good opportunity for our residents to work there. I really don't see a downside that much, but one of the biggest things in many years of intermunicipal agreements between Lancaster and Leominster that we've discussed and tossed around on this council, the fact that we have the ability to shut off the water if we were ever have a problem, because I don't think we had that luxury prior to this. I could be wrong, but I didn't think we could do that with some of the other agreements we've had. So I don't really see a good reason not to support it. Maybe somebody else does. I understand there's always a worry about using water that we don't have. And I also think, Roger, with that type of revenue, or maybe it's the mayor to answer, would that put us in a position to hold the rate down for the ratepayer? We wouldn't have to be looking for additional revenue as often.
Yeah, it'd amount to about 3.5 cents on the rate, over a period of time. But we aren't looking at doing a rate increase in the immediate future, we get some projects that we want to do, but we've also got some debt that we want to pay off. So, but it would help. Yeah, I mean, it's $50,000 towards whatever your debt obligation would be in the future.
Okay. And I also have a lot of respect for Attorney Freer. Many years of working with him and go back a long way. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Frida. Any other councilors have any questions or comments?
Councilor Dombrowski, Councilor Angelini?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the mayor. I think you negotiated a wonderful deal for the city. I read the entire agreement. It's clear that you guys have given us an awful lot of thought. And Roger, you nearly answered my question that I was going to pose. But in a perfect world, what reservoir system would be drawing this off of if we didn't have to mix it in the system?
The direct connection is going to come off the distributing system, which is the one that we just did. Yeah, we just did the upgrades at that Exchange Street treatment plant.
Okay. All right. Terrific. That's it for me. Thank you very much. And again, nice job, all you guys involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Angelini. Any other councilors? Okay, hearing none, Mr. President, I'll turn this back over to you.
All right, very well. Do you, is your committee ready to develop a recommendation, Council?
I think, do we need to get out of recess first?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Your point's well taken. All right, so I'll declare us back into session, and I'll turn it back to you for a recommendation in your committee.
Yeah, no, I think personally think it's a good agreement, and I think the added fire protection for Johnny Appleseed is obviously another bonus. I would be in favor of granting Communication 32, and I would just ask you to poll my committee.
Very well. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
I agree, and I do believe that the Johnny Appleseed, the extension of fire protection up there is a very important feature of this.
Thank you. And Councilor David Cormier?
I concur with granting.
All right. Thank you, Councilor. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs to grant C-32. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Arninger?
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. C-32 has been granted. Thank you, councilors, for all your good work. We'll now move on. You're welcome. You're welcome. We'll now move on to Ways and Means, starting with appointments. Is the chairwoman ready to report on Mr. Fry?
I am, Mr. President. So this is a measure confirming the mayor's appointment of Henry Fry to the position of Board of Appeals, term to expire 4/15/2023. Mr. Fry called in this evening, joined us for a virtual interview. He is a retired CPA who was in business for many, many years, and many of his clients were involved in real estate and construction issues. He has experience with planning board issues and appeals issues and so on. So my recommendation would be certainly to confirm this appointment, and I would ask you to poll my committee.
Very well. Councilor Frida?
I agree.
And Councilor Dombrowski?
I agree.
You've heard EMS recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to confirm the appointment of Henry Fry to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Is there any further discussion? This will be by roll call vote. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Council Dombrowski,
Yay.
Council Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Council Feckley,
Yay.
Council Angelini,
Yay.
Council Ardinger,
Yay.
Council Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Council David Cormier.
Yay.
I shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. The appointment of Henry Fry to the Zoning Board of Appeals is confirmed. Moving on to the appointment of, or reappointment of Virginia Tossi to the position of Housing Authority. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. A measure confirming the mayor's reappointment of Virginia Tossi to the position of the Housing Authority, term to expire April 15th, 2025. Ms. Tossi was kind enough to join us this evening virtually again. Of course, she's very well known in the community as a former longtime city councilor and businesswoman, and has been serving on the Housing Authority for many years. She has a passion for this type of role, and we would certainly want her to continue on. So my recommendation would be to confirm her appointment, and I'll ask you to, or reappointment to poll my committee.
Very well. Council Frida
Absolutely.
and Council Dombrowski.
I agree.
You've heard Deanna's recommendation to confirm the appointment of Virginia Tossi to the Housing Authority. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Council Frida,
Yay.
Council Dombrowski,
Yay.
Council Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Council Feckley,
Yay.
Council Angelini,
Yay.
Council Ardinger,
Yay.
Council Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Council David Cormier.
Yay.
And I shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. The appointment of Virginia Tossi to the position of Housing Authority is confirmed. Moving on to C-38, is the chairwoman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-38, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Request that Cheryl Canedo be exempt from the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, 20B, Conflict of Interest. Last meeting, somebody did ask regarding the election work, that the elections had already passed, but the city clerk made it clear that she certainly would welcome any able body that could help her, and certainly this young lady is working for the city already, would be very helpful with all the wonderful work that the city clerk and her team have done for elections. So my recommendation would be that we would consider her exempt from the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A. I would ask you to pull my committee.
Very well. Council Frida
I agree.
and Council Dombrowski.
I agree.
You've heard Deanna's recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-38. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor Frida,
Yay.
Council Dombrowski,
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Councilor Feckley,
Yay.
Councilor Angelini,
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger,
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier,
Yay.
and I shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. C-38 is granted. Moving on to 20-21, is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. 20-21, Claire M. Frida, Councilor at Large. Request that the City Council amend Rule Number 1 of the Leominster City Council Rules and Procedures entitled Meetings by adding the following after the second paragraph that refers to public emergency. In the event that in-person meetings are rendered impossible or a public safety issue, all meetings and public hearings be held virtually by Zoom, Google, or other virtual means in order to provide clear transparency to the public and the media. So this was on our agenda last meeting for the first time, and I had recommended further time. And my reasoning was that we had 22-21 on the agenda as well. 22-21 tonight was given further time again because of we'll have a public hearing. So I do not feel as though I could give a recommendation for this petition at this time. So I would request again further time so that we can handle both of these petitions, and perhaps even see if the petitioners would be willing to maybe combine some of this language as an added to the zoning ordinances as opposed to the rules. So one of my recommendations would be that the words Zoom and Google not be included, because we don't know when anything like this would happen again. Zoom and Google could be a thing of the past. And, you know, virtual means, you know, we're doing it now by phone. So, and I think it would also make a determination of what type of emergency it was and whether or not the governor was involved in any kind of edict that he would send down. So again, my recommendation would be further time, and I would ask you to poll my committee.
All right, so I will check with Councilor Frida.
No, I support passing it tonight.
Okay, and Councilor Dombrowski.
I would go along with further time.
All right, so let me just say this in response, just for clarification, in response to the Chairman of Ways and Means, Chairwoman of Ways and Means. These really aren't, these are distinct petitions. The petition, let me give you a little bit of historical background. When I was city solicitor back in the early 90s, somebody apparently released capsium spray in City Hall, and just before a city council meeting, and there was a pretty contentious matter that was on that particular night, and the building had to be evacuated and hazmat teams had to be called in. It was quite an evening, let's say. And the city council reconvened itself at the Leominster High School to conduct the meeting, and I had the pleasure of going up there to tell all involved that they couldn't have that meeting because at that time, the municipal code, not our rules as city councils, but the code, which is what 22-21 is seeking to amend, provided that the meetings had to take place in the municipal building. So there was no alternative to to meet anywhere but the municipal building. So that ordinance got amended to include Leominster High School so that there would be some flexibility if the meeting for some reason couldn't be held in City Hall, if the electricity went out there or the building flooded, at least there would be one potential alternative location for a meeting. The petition that David Cormier and I authored simply suggests as a third alternative or a second alternative using the Emergency Management Center, because it really is set up for emergencies. Anybody who's been there knows there's an amphitheater. It's set up for broadcasting. It really is fairly ideal for holding a meeting in an emergency condition, whatever that emergency might be, quite apart from the kind of conditions that we are now using virtual means to meet under. So that's a distinct situation completely. What Councilor Frida is seeking to do, I believe, is to mandate by our rules a methodology to conduct meetings if we find ourselves in a situation like this, where the governor has provided us the ability to meet the open meeting law, but not actually meet in person. I think it was a good idea to file that petition because, you know, essentially as president, I have conducted these meetings the best I could under the circumstances, and I really, truly appreciate the cooperation of the entire council, the clerk's office, and everybody else that has assisted us along the way with these difficult circumstances. And I have my own personal reasons for using a teleconference as opposed to Zoom or GoToMeet with video capacity. And that being said, I think it's appropriate at this juncture if there are councilors that feel, or a majority of the council feels, that we should be using a video conferencing platform as opposed to a teleconferencing platform, so be it. Let the majority have its voice. So I don't see these as, I think these are distinct. So right now, there is a recommendation for further time. That being said, based on what I just clarified, I would assume everybody's position with relative to Ways and Means is the same, or do you want me to recanvass your committee?
I understand I had heard the story regarding the incident at City Hall, so I knew about that and why that the ordinance had been changed. And I do realize that this is a separate issue. However, the wording of the petition indicates that all meetings and public hearings be held virtually. So that takes out, so now, I mean, in my mind, this is kind of dueling petitions, because that takes out, well, if it's they're all going to be held virtually, then why do we need to have them held at the emergency management? So I think that perhaps the petition needs to be reworded. Again,
a meeting of the emergency management.
As a petitioner, can I say something here?
In one moment, Councilor Chairwoman of Ways and Means, the fact that a meeting is held at the high school or at the emergency management center does not make it a virtual meeting.
Okay.
That's a physical meeting.
Right. I'm going to stay with my recommendation for
Very well.
time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Beckley. Councilor Frida, you have the floor.
But just to recap what you just mentioned in regard to the ordinance, I was here during that process. It was exactly as you described it. The parking lot was filled with hazmat dressed people. It was totally unexpected, and there was something contentious on the agenda that night. So the high school was chosen as an alternative, and Councilor Marshgan was the president. It was chosen as an alternative because the thought process was to allow as many people at the hearing, at the city council meeting, in order to express an opinion on the subject that was before us. So all of that does fall in as you described it. This petition has absolutely nothing to do with that, as you said. We had a very strong meeting with our association, with the Attorney General, which prompted me to put this in, and by phone was fine when we thought it was going to be a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. But now that we're approaching a year and we have no idea how much longer this is going to be, the Attorney General's office is recommending that we try to be as transparent and as open as we can to the public and the media. I have received many phone calls from the public asking us why we are not doing Zoom meetings, because they watch the planning board, they watch the school committee, and if you heard Councilor Tossi, former Councilor Tossi tonight, their housing authority meetings are on Zoom. So I find it hard pressed for any councilor to tell their constituency why we're not doing Zoom, why we're not allowing them to watch what we're doing for business. I mean, it's not a bad thing. This is to make us open and transparent. I mean, we should be doing that, and that was after the meeting with the Attorney General's office. It just verified my feeling about having these meetings more public. So that's the reason, and I would appreciate the support for this, because I think it's kind of necessary. The clerk said it would be very simple with the same information that we're using now for the phone calls, and I think it would probably alleviate some of this background noise and a lot of the interference we have. So I just think it's a more professional way for us to be doing business. And just about every council in the Commonwealth is doing it this way. Nobody wants to, nobody likes it, but there are very few opportunities that we have. And I just think we should be moving forward and at least expanding our ability to bring our business to the public and allow them to see what we're doing on their behalf. Thank you,
Okay.
President.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. President,
Yes.
President, Councilor
Yes.
Beckley.
Yes, Councilor.
Okay, so I'm going to use the words that Councilor Dombrowski uses very often, and I am reading the tea leaves here. So, and in words that I would use, I don't need to be hit over the head. to realize that this is perhaps the way that we should go. The only issue that I would have again is using verbiage like Zoom and Google, and that would be up to the petitioner if she wanted to amend that, because again, this would be in our rules for a while, and Zoom and Google could go somewhere else. If the clerk indicates that she's going to be able to use these forums in a easy manner, and it's, you know, we're guaranteed that enough people will be able to join the meetings, then that's fine with me. So I'm going to change my recommendation to say that I would want to grant 2021, and you can repoll my committee.
Okay, so I'm going to make a suggestion so that we're all clear. Whatever we feel about this issue, one way or another, I want clarity. I think that the best way to word that is to suggest in 2021 that all meetings and public hearings be held virtually by video conference. I think that's what the petitioner is asking to do.
That's fine.
Okay, so let's if it's okay with the petitioner, maybe we should amend the petition before we do anything else. Does that make
I
sense?
have no issue with that.
All right.
I'll make
So-
the recommendation to amend it.
Okay, I'll treat that as a motion to amend. Counselor, is there a second to amend?
I'll second it.
Counselor Feckley has seconded. Okay, I'll do this by roll call. This is for the motion to amend 2020-21. Madam Clerk, make sure you get this straight, by striking the words by Zoom, Google, or other virtual means, okay? And substituting in their place by video conferencing in order to provide clear transparency to the public and media. Okay?
Okay.
All right. This is for the motion. Councilor Frida?
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Feckley?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger? Councilor Ardinger?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
And I'm sorry?
Yay.
Yay, and I'll be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. The motion to amend is approved. Now I'll go back to Councilor Chairwoman of Ways and Means, and if you'd like, does your personal recommendation remain the same to grant the amended petition?
Yes, and then we'll
Okay.
have to go back to Councilor Dombrowski, see what, if he wants
I
to
will,
change his
so
recommendation.
I'll poll your committee, okay? Councilor Frida
Yay.
and Councilor Dombrowski.
You know, I just finished a Zoom trial in land court, and it was a nightmare. I don't know. I think Zoom is fine for certain matters, but for other matters, it makes it a lot more cumbersome, especially some of the things that we'd be dealing with. I personally would want a choice. I think some meetings, Zoom or Google video conferencing might be more appropriate. And others, it's just as seamless to go with a telephonic. So I think I'd be against this petition.
All right, so the majority recommendation of Ways and Means is to grant the amended petition 20-21. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, Councilor David Cormier.
You have the floor, Councilor Cormier.
Very much. You know, I certainly, I can appreciate the petition. There's no question about it. What I really want, like I'm sure most other people, is to be somewhat back to normal. I really want to be in person again, in our own chambers, in our own comfort zone where we're supposed to be conducting business. But unfortunately, you know, that's not the world right now that we're living in. You know, and I can tell you this, you know, I think we have been conducting our meetings as efficiently as we can, and I want to commend you for that, Mr. President. I mean, we haven't had to abandon any meeting yet that we've, you know, called to order, because the platform we are using now, it works. It doesn't freeze up, unlike Zoom. I've been on several Zoom meetings, and a couple of them had to be abandoned. It was freezing up so bad. And I think I'd want to see that happen, because once that does, we have to repost the meeting. If we can't move forward, we have to repost the meeting, and then we'd have to set a special meeting to take care of our business. I think we've taken care of all of the business at hand, every single meeting that we've had. And by the way, the school committee is not the only entity that I know of that happened to on a Zoom call. I don't want to be in a situation where, in order to not have that happen, you have to get prior authorization to join one of our meetings. That's not transparent. Anybody can join our meeting at any time, and if there's any nonsense, they can immediately be muted. You know, so I just think, you know, times are not easy right now, and we've done the best that we can do. And I really want to just continue doing what we've been doing, and getting our business done every meeting. And so I will not be supporting this petition. Everything that we're doing right now, we are muted under the governor's orders, and we don't need a rule to tell us how we're going to navigate this pandemic. I think that we've been doing a good job. We're operating under the governor's orders, and you know, we can't have any other. We can't locally declare an emergency and operate the way we're operating right now. We're only operating this way because the governor has, you know, given us the authorization to do so. And I don't think we need a rule to dictate what we're doing. So let's just continue doing what we're doing and leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any other counselor that wishes to be heard?
Mr. President, Councilor Angelini.
I think I heard Counselor Angelini. You're next.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by echoing Councilor Dombrowski's statement, and Councilor Cormier's for that matter. I limited experience with Zoom calls, but I was on one last week, a webinar with Plastics News, and it was a Zoom call. And about 3/4 of the way through it, a vulgar and racist message appeared on the screen, and it was up there for about 15 minutes before apparently the host had an opportunity to figure out how to take it down. And it was quite embarrassing for everyone who was participating. We all know what happened at the school committee. I've also been on more than one Zoom call where we had freezing, and people that are a lot more knowledgeable than I am technology tell me that that happens when you have an interruption in the Wi-Fi connection, or there's just too many people using, there's too much bandwidth demand at the time. And that causes freezing as well. So I also think, and I think the council president can attest to this, even before the two petitions, the petition we're dealing with right now, and I thought that it would be problematic at some point when we wanted to look at a plan, like, for instance, this was even before the Fraticelli event. So I asked the council president if it was possible for us to link off the city's website so that during our teleconferences, we could put up plans that we're looking at, and the public could look at the same plan simply by clicking on a link off the city's website. So apparently the president reported to me that he spoke with the clerk, and that's something we can do. So from where I sit, and again, I'm not an expert at this, but it seems to me that we really don't have any safety guarantees about people hacking into these Zoom calls. We've had, I think, terrific success with the current platform we're using. And by offering that link that would be a visual aid to anyone interested in what we're discussing, I think that would accommodate the issue of transparency. I mean, after all, I don't think anybody's longing to see any of our faces. They simply want to see if there's an item that we're referencing that they don't have the ability to see. And I think that's more than fair. So I would agree with Councilor Cormier. I think the way we're doing business is working. It's working efficiently. And I think with a little bit of tweaking, we can get the public to be able to view what we're viewing in their homes, and we can maintain the safety protocols for the pandemic and the safety protocols we need in this technological world. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Angelini. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be heard that hasn't spoken yet?
Yes, this is Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Thank you, Councilor. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I was an early proponent of trying to do video conferencing when we had to start doing, holding our city council meetings remotely. I really wanted to have a video conferencing platform. And that was, you know, obviously we didn't do that. And we've been having the teleconferencing. Recently, I have had a lot of experience with Zoom and with GoToMeeting, which is a platform that I think that's what the school committee is using, I believe. And I have to say that it's been a horrible experience. The interesting thing from my perspective is that from my perspective of a meeting, it seems to me that my internet is working properly, that my video is being seen, you know, in real time as it should be. And the last meeting that I had, a couple of people said, you keep breaking up, but that wasn't apparent to me. So I kept talking and thinking that I was conducting this meeting, you know, smoothly and, you know, according to the agenda and everything, but that really wasn't happening. And I didn't know that. So when these two people commented and said, look, you've been breaking up, we couldn't hear what you were saying, I thought, well, that was news to me. So as a former proponent of video teleconferencing, however, you know, and a recent kind of serious and often user of both of those platforms, GoToMeeting and Zoom, I have to say that I think we've gotten a lot more done and accomplished using the teleconferencing. We don't have drop. My call has never dropped. My phone has never dropped. This connection, it's never dropped. We can hear people. I think we can do a better job, honestly, of identifying ourselves before we speak. in order for people in the public to know, I mean, we can tell who each other's voices are a lot of the time, but I think in all fairness to the public who don't know us, and certainly people that are joining us for a meeting or two, they don't know us. So I think we can do a better job of making sure that we identify ourselves before we speak. But I have to say, I'm a convert coming late to the teleconferencing versus video conferencing. I've just had a lot of problems recently, and it just has not been an effective way for me personally to conduct meetings that I've had to conduct. So I won't be supporting it. And I say that tonight, and I'm surprised at myself, hearing that, because that was the way I really wanted to go early on, but it just has not worked for me.
Thank you, Councilor. Is any other councilor who hasn't spoken yet wish to be heard?
Councilor Ardinger.
Thank you, Councilor Ardinger. You have the floor.
I unfortunately find myself being a convert like Councilor Chalifo Zephyr. Originally, I was all for Zoom meetings, but having looked at the meetings or attended the Zoom meetings and seeing the breakups and stuff, I can just imagine if all of a sudden we were taking a vote on a crucial issue and the Zoom froze and we were stopped. We were just not being able to do any business. So I'm going to be voting against this petition, for the same reason. I think it's better off to stay where we are right now.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilor who hasn't spoken wish to be heard? Okay, hearing none. Does the petitioner wish to rebut anything?
Yes, actually.
Go ahead, Councilor Frida, you have the floor.
Thank you. Having been on the council for over 26 years, I can tell you that on 3 different occasions, we want to talk interruption. We've had people storm our city council meetings where we've had to stop them. We've had people going out up into the 2nd floor. I mean, we've had interruptions. Some of these things you're not gonna avoid. And the transparency to the public and media line that was in there at the suggestion of the Attorney General's office. That's where I took that line from, at her recommendation. The possibility of freezing, I'm sure that's possible. Possibility of our phone lines going down, possibility of not being able to hear things sometimes because there's so much background. That's possible too. All these others, once a week we have a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor's office. For 22 weeks we've been having them now. We haven't had one issue. So I suppose it's as good as their equipment. And I'm not a Zoom person. I'm not a computer person. Everybody knows that. I don't do any kind of social media. But I think I just find it very. Tonight was a perfect example. The councilor from Ward 4 mentioned putting something up on the site while we were talking. Why would we not want to have something as serious as the Fraticelli oil issue and propane gas issue, looking at the maps at the same time we're talking about them, and being able to see Mr. Fraticelli explaining that map and the people that he had with him explaining the map. We want to have the issue with bringing the architect and the building committee down for the police station in a short time frame when the rest of the plans are put together, which will be very soon. So I just find it hard to believe that we don't want to service our taxpayers because they're looking for this. This doesn't matter to me. This isn't for me. Being political on this isn't for me. It's for the people that are watching, that are requesting this. And if nobody else is getting phone calls on it, nobody else is being criticized for being in the dark ages, then that's fine. If we want to continue that way. But believe me, this isn't my idea, and this isn't for me to have Zoom. It's much more comfortable not to have to dress up for a meeting and just follow along on the phone. But people expect more from us, and I think we should give people more. So That's my opinion, and I find it surprising that that isn't more of a majority's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Just so I can clarify a couple of things, I take the responsibility, of course, of directing these meetings very seriously. And I chose a time to become council president when we've had some unprecedented problems to deal with. And meeting virtually, of course, being number one on the list. It has been suggested a number of times, and it has been discussed about the possibility of video conferencing versus teleconferencing. I've had discussions with various experts in the field, and the number one thing that they will tell you about video conferencing is you have to protect your password. Putting the password out to the public in general is problematic and insecure. That being said, the school committee has adopted a protocol where you have to, if you want to participate in the meeting, and as Councilor David Cormier mentioned, there's nothing in the governor's order that requires us to allow the public to participate in these virtual meetings. But we all, I'm sure, would believe that it's better to allow public participation than to foreclose it. So assuming that that's our mantra going forward, the school committee has answered the security problem by requiring anybody who wants to participate publicly in the meeting to make an advance reservation for the meeting. And the code is distributed to them directly, and they're asked to keep it confidential just before the meeting starts. So that obviously is not going to encourage public participation, because sometimes people, learn about an issue at the last moment, or they don't realize or don't know what their schedule is going to be. And it is not always something that people plan for. So to me, it's a little bit of a chilling effect, and counterbalancing one against the other. In other words, allowing spur of the moment participation, even though it's telephonically, versus allowing participation in a video format that requires advance is the reason that I have thus far stuck to the teleconferencing platform in a nutshell. So there's no perfect way, and I appreciate Councilor Frieda bringing this petition, because I think this should be the will of the council, not necessarily my decision alone. And I appreciate you all weighing in on this. And unless there's something else to be said, I'll take a vote.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just have one more comment.
Yes, Councilor Frieda, you have the floor.
What precipitated the comment to me initially on why are we not doing Zoom was the frustration, and also people that tune into our meetings on LATV and hear our voices, listen to the background noise, and watch a flag fly for 2 hours. And that's almost worse, because we aren't telling them anything. We aren't showing them anything. We're talking about something, as tonight would be a perfect example with the Fraticelli issue. Now, people are listening to us. We're talking about maps. Who's got the map? Who doesn't have the map? We can't have the map shown to us by Mr. Fraticelli because we're not there, and he's not visible. And people that want to know what the map says or what the map looks like can't see it because they're watching a flag wave and listening to us talk. So there are many different areas, and it wasn't just the governor that declared a state of emergency. If you remember, the mayor also declared a state of emergency for the city of Leominster, and it's still on, as far as I understand. So there are a number of different reasons why we should be going. And if it didn't work, there would be nothing to prevent us from going back to teleconferencing. If there was an issue that we felt didn't want to be on Zoom, we would have that ability. We would be able to shut the cameras off. There are a number of things, from what I understand, you can do to adapt to whatever the situation is. So, to not give us that option at all, I think is really wrong. And to not give that to the public, I think is really wrong. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. All right, this will be by roll call vote. A Yea vote is in favor of the amended petition, and nay vote is against the amended petition. Starting with Councilor Frida.
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Nay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Nay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Nay.
Councilor Aranger.
Nay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Nay.
Councilor David Cormier.
Nay.
And I shall be recorded as nay by a vote of 7-2. The petition fails. Moving on to public service, 21-21. Is the chairwoman of public service ready to report?
I am, 21-21, Pauline Cormier, Ward 2 Counselor, on behalf of residents of Johnny Appleseed Lane in the city of Leominster, respectfully request the installation of streetlights, specifically the area of the home numbered 172 Johnny Appleseed Lane. Before I continue, I'd like to check with the clerk to see if we have the referral from the mayor's office.
So not from the mayor's office. It started pinging around a little bit, and I just got a referral back from Joe Poirier, the wire inspector, not too long ago, that I haven't been able to send out yet because it was too late.
Okay, but we don't have anything from the mayor's office yet, though.
No.
Okay, and that's important because over the years, he hasn't really been a strong supporter of adding streetlights because of the cost. So I think it's important that we have his opinion. And I also drove by there, and it was daytime. I wanted to get a chance to go by there at nighttime as well. But this is in the area of new homes that are being built. And from the 172 location, another house or two houses down was a street light, and I'm not sure how many are on the other side. But I think we need to hear from the DPW and from the mayor's office as to their feelings on adding lights there. So my recommendation would be for further time.
Okay, I'll check with your committee members. Councilor Feckley
Yes, I agree with that.
and the petitioner, your position on that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so the AMS recommendation of public service is to give 21-21 further time. Is there any further discussion, councilors? Hearing none, all those in favor of giving 21-21, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 21-21 is given further time. We have no new business. We have no old business. Is there anything under the community calendar?
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Go ahead, Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I don't know if this is actually under community calendar, but it's it's a PSA. Over the past week, we've had two incidents in the city. One was in my ward, specifically where cars were speeding or not paying attention, and two kids have been hit and struck. So I would want to put out to the community that the kids are not, or they're only in school part-time. Parents are trying to get the kids out of the house, even in the cooler weather. So they're getting out from in front of the computers. They're going out, they're spending a little more time outside. Parents are taking kids out on the bikes. They're walking dogs even more. So we need to slow it down a bit. We need to get off our cell phones. We need to pay attention. And I'm hoping everybody will spread the word and get us through this holiday season and this COVID season a lot safer than it's been in the past week.
Thank you, Councilor. Those are good comments and a good admonition to everybody in the public. Thank you for making those. Anybody else have anything?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
My pleasure. Any other councilors have anything in the community calendar?
Yes, Mr. President, I do. It's actually probably not in the community calendar either, but it's just to congratulate John Souza, who is the 2020 Citizen Planner of the Year for the American Planning Association in the Massachusetts chapter for volunteerism and leadership in the in the planning board as the planning board chair. So he's the Citizen Planner of the Year for 2020, and there'll be a virtual celebration on December 11th honoring him. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Council. I appreciate it. Okay, anybody else have anything else? Because I have one thing before we close. All right, so we have not taken our 2020 photograph as a city council, which you know annually we do. It's a long-standing custom of the city council. So what I have worked through, and I subject to any objections by any of you, is to arrange for a photograph outdoors with masks on Saturday, December 5th at 9:30. We would take advantage of. Oh, good. we would take advantage of the City Hall's front steps so that we could align in 2 rows, 6 feet apart. Our customary photographer, Mr. Schroeder, is available, and we would set a rain date on Sunday at 9:30. I had originally set it for 10, but many may know that a long-term time leader of our community, Seth Fermani, passed away, and his services at St. Anna Church are on Saturday the 5th at 10. So if everybody can be available at 9:30, those who would be attending or wish to attend Mr. Fermani's services can still do that as well. We do need to wear a mask. Of course, the governor's order requires us to wear a mask in public, even if socially distanced. I know that may not be necessarily the highest fashion, but it is going to be, I think, a historic photo, quite honestly, and it'll be a sign of the times, that's for sure. Anybody have any difficulty with that? Does that work for everybody? Okay, hearing none, I'll have the clerk send out, Madam Clerk, if you don't mind, if you could just send out a formal notice to all of the council to be present on Saturday, December 5th at 9:30 for that photograph. We can get that business done, and again, using some alternative means, but at least we'll keep things going.
No problem.
Anything
Mr.
else?
President?
I'm sorry?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Councilor Angelini?
Yes, Councilor.
With the person who said it's their birthday, please identify themselves so I'll be prepared. Did someone say it was their birthday on December 5th?
Oh, that's me. Gail.
Oh.
Gail.
Councilor Fackley.
Okay, Gail.
You don't have to.
Very good. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You don't have to be Councilor Angelini.
It's a test. We want to see
I want
which
to tell you
councilors.
how many birthdays I've celebrated.
I just want to be able to say happy birthday. That's all.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
It'll be a
You're welcome.
comprehension and retention test to see how many councilors remember that it's your birthday.
Remember.
Councilor Fackley.
There you go.
All right. Unless anybody has
I'm wearing
anything.
a birthday crown.
Very good. Very good. You can wear you can wear in the photograph if you prefer as well. We'll have to put a footnote on the back as to why.
Yes.
All right. If it's snowflakes or if it's cloudy, we're certainly going to go forward with it. If it's raining hard, we'll have to go to the Sunday date. But let's just keep our fingers crossed that we can get it done on Saturday the 5th. Okay. Well, hearing nothing else. Yes.
No, I said it sounds good. Sorry.
Okay. Very good. Hearing unless somebody else has anything else, I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for all your hard work
Happy
and effort,
Thanksgiving,
councilors.
everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
to you all.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
God bless.
Good night. Bye-bye.